Welcome to Standard Intelligence, your resource for competitive constructive magic in the UK. This is episode 73 for the week beginning the 8th of April 2019. I'm Dr. Jack Patton.
And I'm Simeon Beaver. This episode is brought to you in part thanks to our supporters on our Patreon. Many thanks to those of you who have made a contribution. It is immensely appreciated by both of us. Anyone who is our supporter on Patreon by the 7th of May will be eligible for our May draw. If you'd like to learn more about how to support us, please head over to patreon.com/SIcast. We're also sponsored by the largest tournament organisers in the UK, Axion Now. Axion Now have run some of the best events in the UK, from FNMs and PPTQs to nationals, and they're now legendary Mega Modern events. So we're very happy to have them on board as our sponsors.
Exactly, Simeon. And apart from being at the centre of a community of Magic players of all skill levels, they also sell singles, sealed products, and all the equipment you may need to play tabletop Magic. Head over to axionnow.com to find out more.
With that, let's get right into our special Magic topic for this week.
So this week on the podcast, we're doing something slightly different. I've actually spent the last few weeks interviewing 3 content creators within the realm of Magic the Gathering, asking them various questions about how they got into content creation and how it has affected them. And today we're going to go through those interviews, compare them, and hopefully give listeners a really good idea as to what it feels like on this side of the desk, basically. We picked 3 creators with differing size audiences, different types of output, different target audiences, and just a different approach to content creation each. And hopefully what we're going to see is where they all agree on something. That's a really important point that you should take note of. And maybe where they disagree on something, you're getting the different views of those content creators coming through as to how best to go about actually creating content, specifically, obviously, Magic the Gathering. So we've got...
I'm Abbie from Master of Magics.
We've also got...
Vince, also known as Pleasant Kenobi on the internet. I make YouTube videos that are mainly entertainment, because I'm not very good at Magic.
And then we've also got Zuby from...
Magic with Zuby.
So these 3 creators have got some very different stories as to how they actually got into Magic content creation. So why don't we start with Abbie, and we'll see how they got into content creation for Magic.
To start with, I got a job at a wargaming store. We were experimenting with different things. I had been slightly interested with Magic in the past, and I just happened to be talking to somebody, we were talking about playing Magic. And he was like, oh, I'll just bring some cards in, we can play some games, whatnot. So that's what we did. And then a few other people were slightly interested. I was like, hey, why don't we sell Magic? In the end, we started playing Magic, and we started running a Magic at the store. So to get people interested and to know when things were going to be on or what kind of events we should do, I made a Facebook page blog called Master of Magics, where I would update people on what was going on or ask people what they wanted to do. I mean, you could barely call that Magic content, other than the fact of like, hey, who wants to draft on Wednesday? It just slowly developed into a little bit of a personality type thing, and then there was a Twitter account. My Twitter account got made, and that's when I discovered that there's actually like a whole world of people all doing this, all connecting with communities, bringing people together, playing Magic. And then it was a GP Manchester a couple years ago. It might have been 3 years ago now. I saw them post the details about it, so I shared it on my page. And then somebody, it was Mind Sports Academy that were running it. It was right before Channel Fireball took over. So Mind Sports Academy, somebody from there, one of their like editor guys, because they had a small amount of content on their site. They contacted me and they're like, hey, I just noticed that you have this blog page, just a personality thing going on. I was wondering if you wanted to make content, and we'll give you some booster boxes or something. So I was like, oh yeah, sure, this is great. This is amazing. This will be great for building more magic in our community, and it'll make me look important. And then I sat down to write something. I honestly can't remember what it was. I can't remember what my first article was. But I sat down, I was writing it, and it took me days to write because I wanted it to be so good. I honestly, it was days, and I was just like going over it and over it. I was getting people to proofread it, and I was like, is this going to be okay? Is this good? And eventually I sent it to him, and he got back to me. He's like, this is great. We'll put it on the website. Bish bash bosh. How about you do like one a week? I think it was. So I was like, oh my God, can I keep doing this? It took me days to do. And I was so stressed the whole time because I wanted it to be good. I gathered a lot of the regulars in the community and some friends, and I was like, please help me. So we all started kind of mashing together these articles. I want to say there was maybe like 5 or 6 of us doing it. So we're just like, oh, here's an idea. Here's a deck. Let's say a bunch of stuff about this. Oh, what if we say this? What if we say this? And we were just throwing together a bunch of words. And eventually we got our first booster box. We were going to get a booster box each month, and we got our first one. But I didn't sign anything official, obviously, so you can see where this is about to go. We all met up, we drafted our box, it was all great fun, and it was a big pat on the back, like, oh, we did so much work, now we get to play Magic for free, this is great. And then another month went by, and we had done an article each week, and then another month went by, and then around this time was when all of the other companies stopped. They got their GPs taken away, or they didn't get assigned any more GPs, and Mind Sports Academy was one of them. I didn't experience a bunch of nonsense going on at GP Manchester, but a lot of people did, and I think that reflected pretty badly on them. So they just dropped Magic. They didn't even message us to say anything. They just, radio silence gone. So it was like, oh, are we going to get our next 2 booster boxes? No? Okay. And they just disappeared. They removed Magic from the website. So we're all sat there, like, we've been doing all this content. I believe we had a handful of articles, like, half put together. And so I think we went to McDonald's. We used to go to McDonald's really late at night. There's a 24-hour McDonald's not too far from me. We'd go really late at night, probably like usually after F&M, and we'd all sit down and we'd have these little meetings, and we'd talk about what content we're gonna make next. And we'd write down a whole list of ideas, and we would then put it up onto the Google Drive, and we'd write everything on Google Drive. And obviously, for everybody who uses Google Drive, you know that multiple people can be on at the same time. So we'd be on and we'd be typing away, and we'd be highlighting things and leaving notes and annoying each other. But yeah, we'd have these meetings. We sat down at McDonald's. It's probably like midnight. Just, what do we do now? And James Wise and Chris Warrington, they were like, oh, we should just do our own thing. And Chris is just like, oh, I've got a buddy who does websites. He makes websites. He could probably get us a host, whatever. And so James is like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, from then we sit down, and we have all of these we make all these polls we've got a Facebook group, and we do all these decisions and everything. We're like, should we change the name? Should we make a logo? What should we do with this? How should we do this? We're going serious. We're taking this super serious. Like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make our own website. You know, it's gonna be great. But to begin with, it was literally just my Facebook blog. So yeah, we were thinking about the name, and then we thought about where it all came from and where it started. It's like, you know what, we should keep the name. Like, I've been doing this for so long, because I think I'd been doing this blog for about a year before we actually started doing this. So it's like, you know, like, this is the roots. I'm the one who like owns all of the stuff. I pay for all the stuff. So it's like, let's just keep it as what it was. So it's like, okay, cool, Master of Magics it is.
So that was how Abbie and Master of Magics got started. How about PK? How did Pleasant Kenobi get started?
So I started out training to be a teacher after my English degree and failed that, and then dropped. Well, I say failed. I hated it and dropped out. And then I spent a lot of time like moving between a couple of different jobs and not really feeling very fulfilled. And I always thought I'd be a creative person or someone to like influence people to do something good, I guess is another way I looked at it. I always wanted to write a novel as my secondary thing behind being a teacher. And then I sort of started writing articles about video games for a website called viability.com. Then I realised that no one was really reading articles as much as they used to, and videos was basically the future. Well, the future was now. It was already happening. YouTube was already exploded. This was several years into YouTube's like massive explosion. So I started making videos, and then I made some video game videos, and they did pretty meh, like you do when you first start on YouTube. Then I started doing Magic videos just because I was playing a lot of Magic at the time and I really loved it. And then one day I decided to do a video where I played Mono Red Tron, a really dumb like meme deck that myself and a few friends from Southampton area had joked about a lot on the way back from like PTQs and GPs and things. I played it without recording myself live over it, like I had done with my previous content, and then I did a script afterwards. I rewatched the gameplay, talked over it, joked a little bit, put some music behind that, put that up, and that video, I guess, went as viral as a Magic video can go. It picked up several thousand views very quickly, and it was popular on Reddit, and I started to gain subscribers very, very quickly, and that was the video that took me towards my 1,000 subscribers to start with. And then from there, I just kept replicating the formula, but spicing it up and mucking about. And here I am today, still playing meme decks and some tier stuff, with scripted dialogue over the top and music alongside it. And it's just fresh and different and not what people expect from Magic gameplay.
So obviously, before we go into any deep analysis on that one, Simeon, is there any similarities there between you and PK?
Yeah, more than I thought there was between him and me. Yeah, it's not just we're both bearded gentlemen who are not as young as we used to be. It rings a lot of bells, that teaching and wanting to write a book. Yeah, I haven't actually got into writing articles, and I probably should have done. But then it's interesting that he has this one video, the one thing that takes off, and that's what then snowballs.
So that was PK. Let's have a listen to how Zuby got into content creation for Magic.
Now, to really try to pinpoint what exactly made me want to start, that's hard to say because... as I've mentioned before on my podcast, I actually started writing deck techs and blogs for a now defunct social media Magic website called themeadery.org, which was, they tried to position themselves as sort of being like the Facebook for Magic people. And so I started writing, you'd get your own blog on that site, and then I started writing some articles, and I guess some of the owners of the website liked what I was writing, so they started featuring me on there. And so that kind of gave me the push. And then I started doing sort of like a pre-Magic with Zuby videos I used to put up on YouTube, just talking about like what I'm doing right now in Magic and how I'm progressing and all that. But it got completely destroyed by the community at the time. And so that kind of definitely took me out of it. So I went back to writing blogs, and then one of my friends gave me an idea of just doing a podcast, and it just went from there. So to ask what made me want to start, I don't know. I don't know exactly, but I've always been interested in creating stuff like this, like writing especially.
So that's, I think that is possibly a little bit more regular for how a lot of other content creators get into it. You know, I've started making things, and those things were, you know, articles or videos that didn't particularly necessarily do very well, and then you find this other idea and you go, oh, let's try that. And for whatever reason, people really resonate with that more, and you get more and more into it. Like the creators that are bigger, I think, generally start with something and it doesn't necessarily go very well, but you get to like cut your teeth on it.
I mean, any creator of anything will tend to, their initial forays are not going to be anywhere near as good as their forays once they've had a year 2 years experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's interesting that they are getting started in one way and then they're changing channel onto a different path, still giving the same type of content but in a different way. So they're going from writing to podcasting, or from regular videos to video with talking over the top of a match with music in the background, and just altering what they're doing, not just improving how they're doing that thing they were doing.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting that we see that from both PK and Zuby. This like, no, I'm going to shift my medium, and in some way that's going to affect how I create things. And I don't think it like suddenly makes them better creators. I think what it does is maybe focus what they've already got. Like, PK is obviously a really personable person, loves telling jokes, and is just like a really funny person. But when you're recording as you're playing, it's kind of hard to get that across.
Yes.
And then obviously I think Zuby had a very similar thing, and I would say that I've loved the recent podcasts that were, you know, very heavily just interviews, and they're just interviews with people. They're not like magic interviews, they're just interviews. And I think that's really Zuby's, like, one of his biggest strengths. And he wasn't playing to that when he's just, you know, dashboard cam chatting. As he explained, his earlier videos were like that, and I think he's even said it on his podcast in the past, or a video on YouTube, where he's like, people destroyed me for those, and looking back on it now, rightly so, because they were awful. And it's like, you just weren't showing what you could do, and what Zuby can do is interview really well.
It's also interesting that essentially people come from it as writers, and I think that's because certainly I grew up, and I suspect even you grew up, even though you're somewhat younger than me, as writing is the outlet of creativity. In school, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And so when we come to trying to be creative about something, we start off going, let's write about it. But these days, writing isn't the thing to do. It is podcasts or videos or something where you still got to have an understanding of how language works and how to make things interesting to other people. But you don't have to do it through a written form.
Yeah, that's how they all got started. Obviously, all three of them have had very different introductions to creating. So I kind of wanted to see what each of them had as advice for new creators. So why don't we just keep rolling through, and we'll start with Abbie again.
And so definitely don't be afraid of talking to other people. For starters, that's a really big thing. Just communicating with other content creators, getting ideas. But honestly, it's just doing it. It's that seriously is it.
Abbie also had some other advice that came along a little bit later, but I think is also really relevant here, so I'm just going to play that now.
I see in a lot of other creators, they're panicking about numbers. They're like, oh, wait, my views have been bad. Because this is an awful thing about YouTube, right? Is all of your stats are there for the world to see. And I think that's the awful thing about YouTube, and I think that's why I've been very reluctant to try doing any real YouTube content, because you're just there and it's like, oh, like you see people are like, oh, my last video, it got no views and I don't know why, and now I hate myself, and now I don't want to do content anymore. I'm going to quit the game. I can't stand it. It's like, well, no, just don't do content. If it doesn't make you happy, don't do it. Just do it for the fun. So when people come up to me, they're like, hey, I just had this idea for an article. I just want to write something. It's like, excellent. Just, I don't pressure people. I get plenty of people come up to me and they're like, oh, hey, could I write something for your website? I'm like, yes. And then they never get back to me. It's like, that's okay. Like, I want to be like, hey, where's that article? Why haven't you written that article yet? Because, you know, that means they're not doing it for fun. They're doing it because they feel obliged. So actually maybe that is my biggest thing for a content creator. Do it because it's fun. If it's not fun, then maybe you're not making the right content. I mean, you're not making the right content. If it's not fun, you're not doing the right thing. Like, people may not want to hear that either, because people in their mind might want to be, but I want to make content. Make the content that makes you happy then, and ignore if that doesn't get many views.
I think Abbie has two incredibly important points there. I know that when you started doing the YouTube videos and doing your stream, Jack, that was something we talked about, was like, don't worry about how many people are watching. Just enjoy doing it. And if you're not enjoying doing it, stop. If you are enjoying doing it, it doesn't matter how many views you've got.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And don't and in the same ways you shouldn't put your self-worth in your results when you're playing Magic, don't put your self-worth in how many other people are watching your videos when you're creating content.
I mean, that's definitely a big thing. Vincent touches on that in talking about burnout, so we'll hear that a little bit later. But yeah, I think, yeah, as you say, just start doing things, and you know what? If nobody watches, but you're still enjoying yourself, keep doing it. If 10 million people start watching you and you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it?
And
like, unless it is like giving you some financial stability that you didn't have through another means, then yeah, sure.
Actually, if 10 million people start watching it and you're not enjoying it, you suddenly actually have a much bigger problem that you're going to have to keep.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have to keep doing this thing that you don't enjoy, and that will not work for long.
Yeah.
Okay.
That very point comes up when PK is talking about sponsorship. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But yes, on taking that feedback from people, specifically on YouTube, Abbie was I think referencing most of the time when we were having this conversation. Yeah. She had a couple of really, I think, salient points to make on that. So I'm going to play those through now.
The angry minority are the loudest. So they're the ones that you're most likely going to get feedback from. All the people who just enjoy. Because I'm definitely one of these kinds of people. I will watch a video if I enjoy it, but then I very often don't comment, and I feel bad because I know that commenting is really good. Just so everybody's also aware, downvotes do technically help your algorithm. So so getting a downvote isn't that bad, and it means that they were like there and you got a view. So and then if you get a bad comment, actually comments are like great for algorithms. So if you get a bad comment, that's actually also helping your algorithm. And with any luck, eventually when your community grows, you'll get somebody who will then respond to that bad comment, and I'll be like, oh, well, I actually enjoyed this video. You should probably have not said mean things. And then that's even better because you're getting lots of interactions. So if anything, try to pull the positive out of all of these bad people.
So that's Abbie on how to deal with YouTube analytics. Before we discuss that properly, let's also just have a quick listen to Abbie's ideas on interacting with your content creators in paper.
So Chris Vincent, he writes on the website. He writes a variation of things, but he has written a bunch of competitive articles because he was on the grind, but he went to, I think it was GP Hong Kong, and a group of people, not English, came up to him and they were just like, oh, we know you write for a website, which was absolutely mind-blowing because it's a website, so it's not YouTube. You can't see people's faces. He messaged me like, I can't believe this happened. That is something that I would definitely say to either content creators or fans of any content is, oh my god, please go up to these people and say hi. It doesn't matter. Don't feel shy. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't think that you'll be bugging them, because honestly, every single time somebody has come up to me and said, hey, are you Abbie? All of those people are in my head, like every single one of them. And every now and again, like, I think I made a tweet about it not too long ago. I was like, if the creator is really big, don't be scared to say hi because they still appreciate it. And if the creator is really small, please go say hi because it'll mean so much to them. Because I was in the shower, just like shower thoughts, just like wondering, like, oh, I remember that GP. It's like, that was cool. And then it just like popped into my head, this person come up to me and be like, hey, are you Abbie? I read your website like every day and I really like your website. And he was talking to me and it made me so happy. Like, that made my day. And it still makes my day even after the fact. Like, every now and again it'll just pop into my head and it's like, oh, that makes me so happy.
She has some really interesting points. I had no idea that downvotes were as good as, not as good, but were useful as well as upvotes. I am just as guilty of liking videos and not doing anything about it.
Yep.
I don't tend to make a comment. I almost never make a comment. I very, very occasionally upvote things, but only very occasionally. I do try and watch things all the way through to the end because I know that helps helps analytics. But beyond that, I don't really do anything about it. But as she said, the vast majority are silent and like your things. And it's the minority that are vocal that don't like it that you should be ignoring.
Yeah. If someone takes the effort to say something and it's negative, ignore them.
Yeah.
Feel free to ignore them.
Don't respond to it.
So
just ignore
actually,
it.
that might come up because I had a very similar discussion with Vincent a little bit later on about something very similar about, you know, the analytics and dealing with people who respond like that. And he said, you know, the advice given to everyone is don't respond because it's not worth it. And he actually took a different track at one point and found that he got kind of positive results. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, so that's Abbie on advice for new creators, and then on how to take feedback and how to even give feedback as well. I would very much like to second her point about people coming up and saying hi. Every person in mind that has said to me, I listened to your podcast, I remember them.
Yeah, same here. Absolutely, 100%. Especially people who I've never met before.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
Well, it's someone who isn't from our little circle of PPTQ grinders in the southeast. We're actually listened to in some other parts of the country.
/ world.
Yeah. And that's really exciting and really pleasing and makes you want to carry on and keep going with it.
Yeah, I think every content creator loves that sort of thing. So those are how Abbie would deal with, you know, the feedback that you get on specifically, obviously, like YouTube and things like that. Vincent also had some comments on this very same topic. So let's hear what he has to say. Obviously, he was actually talking about this in the context of burnout, but I think it's a little bit more relevant to talk about it here.
The only burnout I've had recently is dealing with negativity. So, on the whole, I've been very, very lucky. I guess I am I'm not fully white, but people think I'm white, right? So I'm a white cis male, so I get it very easy on the internet, especially as I'm outspoken and I've got the privilege to be able to like talk back to people and not get people like, you know, campaigning against me with hate towards a certain quality of me. So I get it easy in many ways. And my comment sections have been very positive and the reaction to my videos have been very positive. But since Commander Clash, which was like one of the last big peaks of things I did with the Goldfish team for like half a year, that's when I first started to witness comment sections being like just like irrationally horrible towards me. Like people being like, oh, I really hate Vince, he whines too much, or he's a filthy combo player, or I'm sick of stacks, or whatever. And the thing is, every week it'll be a different complaint that doesn't match the one from last week. And the thing is, when I go into the comment sections and I respond, which I was told not to do, but I did it anyway, and then people go like, oh, he's human, my bad. Like the people don't realise that the person at the other end of the content is like a human being. So responding to them, some people would fight back inevitably, but I've got that a little bit when I got back from the States for the GPs that I just did. I had back for a 2-week hiatus of sorts, but I still uploaded 2 slow play videos and 1 big gameplay video while I was out there. And because I skipped a week of uploading my big Friday video, when I uploaded what I call a slow play, like a 30-minute video, I've cut all the small bits out, the silences out, but I'm playing through a league. Somebody, like 7 different people commenting going, you've changed. Since you got back from America, you've changed. You haven't uploaded a video like you normally do. I'm like, I've just got back. I've been back like 5 minutes. This video was recorded like before I went to the States. I just edited it on the in the airport on the way back. Like, and I did a mistake. I copy and pasted my response saying, guys, cut me some slack. I've only been back a few days. I copy and pasted that to all like 4 or 5 of the first ones that said that. And then someone responded going, you've changed. You never used to copy and paste your responses. I was like, I don't know if you're joking or just being an... But, so yeah. And then I let that get to me a little bit because I don't want people to think that I am not being honest with them or being the person that I was. I feel there's a debt there because I have a Patreon where people give me money to make content. So I make the content because I know I've got almost like a debt to them in a way. And I don't want people to think I've changed or sold out because of CFB, for example, as well. So yeah, I think I have recently suffered some real strain dealing with negative comments. And the thing is, the other 100 comments in that video or 200 comments or whatever it got were all positive. So I focused almost exclusively on 4 to 7 people. And I shouldn't do that. And I should tell other people not to do that, but it's hard not to.
Yeah, so I'll back up what he says about do not respond to negative feedback. I know that I realise, yeah, and yes, there are people that don't seem to realise that when you make a comment on social media that there is an actual person on the other end receiving that comment. And I don't understand that mindset, but I know it exists and it really has to be ignored. And in my teaching life, obviously you're often dealing with children falling out over utterly minor things that you're fairly certain 2 days later are going to be fixed. And generally they're fixed by ignoring what has happened. There are some situations that you can't ignore. So someone being racially aggressive can't be ignored because that has further bearings on things. And Vincent's right that he maybe has it much easier because people take him as a white cis male. I suspect we would be in the same position.
Oh yeah. No, our privilege is massive here.
And it's a privilege you don't see because you don't receive the negative comments that other people get for things that they can do nothing about because it is who they are and they couldn't change it even if they wanted to. You really should. This is a thing I worry about with content creation, is the not paying attention too much to the negative comments. Obviously, a constructive criticism comment is fantastic.
Yeah,
going,
love those.
I'd like you to do this, or I didn't think this quite worked because, etc. But trying to make sure you focus on the vast majority of positive comments is where you want your head to go. And I know that is easy to say and very, very difficult to do because your head goes, but someone said that I was awful. I don't want someone to think that I'm awful. I want everyone to realise that I'm nice.
But I think the other thing that PK is saying there is also kind of interesting. That sort of like people have these odd impressions of content creators. This whole thing of like, you've changed since you got back from America, and it's like, I recorded that before I went to America. What are you talking about? It's really odd, this like perception, and not just the perception of the person as well, like this idea that they can be somehow swayed so quickly by something. It's like, no, I've been a person on this planet for 30 years. I'm pretty sure having been in the States for 2 weeks isn't going to drastically change who I am unless I had some sort of life-defining moment out there. It's also
the feeling of entitlement that some people seem to have about, you create this content, why aren't you creating it? Well, I don't have to create it.
Yeah, exactly. The entitlement of, I deserve this content that you create. Yeah, it is for me. And it's like,
I didn't get my video this month or this week, and
but there's also the other thing there of, that person clearly has no concept of the amount of time it takes to create something.
No, this is true. This is very true.
Vincent was obviously talking about there, recorded before they went to the States, edited while
in the airport.
While in the airport, and then uploaded as soon as they got back. And every stage of that takes more time than anyone would imagine, I think, unless you've done it already. Because it's certainly more than I imagined, and I felt that I was relatively well dialed in.
The fact that things take this long does restrict how much you can do.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think that's a really important point there from PK. That's his take on feedback from other people. But while we're on advice for new creators, why don't we see what Pleasant Kenobi, what Vincent has to say for advice for new creators?
I think that as much as imitating other things that are happening already can get you some views and a little bit of attention, I think realistically there's two things. One, you have to find your niche or niche for the American listeners. I think that people too often try to copy what's already existing. So my first videos were a lot of let's plays and video game reviews that were just retreading what other people were saying and doing already anyway. Hopefully a bit more charismatic, I guess, is what I was hoping for. But only when I started to do magic content in a way that was completely unique to what was happening at the time did I get any sort of traction, to use a buzzword. So I think people really need to find truly unique angles to make their content stand out. And then secondly, I think, is just don't be afraid to try and put yourself out there. Once you've got content that you think is of a quality that people might want to see, or you get your first initial feedback from an audience saying, make more of this content, then don't be afraid to try and get it out there. Talk to other people about promoting it, try to do collaborations with people, and Reddit's a good one. Websites like Reddit and Twitter. Be active on other social media forms that can link back to your content, whether it be articles, videos, podcasts, or whatever, because you can make the best content in the world, but if no one can see it, then no one's going to know about it. You've got to be careful though. There's a delicate balancing act on a tightrope almost, that you don't want to spam and you don't want to come across as desperate, but at the same time, once you've got that initial feedback, once you know you've found a niche or you've found your groove, you can then be like, you know what, I can be proud of this, and I think other people might watch it and be like, this is actually pretty good. I'm glad someone pointed me in that direction. And prompt people to share stuff as well. People don't do call to action enough. I know this is a bit of a cliche, but people say, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Maybe break it up so it doesn't sound like the typical, almost the inside joke of YouTube now, but try and say to people, look, share my stream, tell your friends about my videos, listen to the podcast in the car on the next GP with your friends if there's like silent time. Just share it around so other people know the stuff exists, because you can make the best content in the world, but if no one knows, then no one knows, to make an kind of obvious statement.
So again, PK is on this idea of get it out there, like do put it out there, put yourself out there. And also, obviously, work with other creators. And Abbie was obviously talking about, talking to other creators and other people. Vince takes it a step further and goes, when you get feedback, start building on that and that kind of thing. But obviously, the other big thing that PK brings in there that I think is key. Like, it's definitely something that basically any marketer will tell you. It's, if you're not doing something within your niche, why on earth is anyone going to listen to you over someone else, or watch you over someone else? That
was exactly where we started, wasn't it? Was no one is talking about the UK PPTQ scene as a specific outside, away from the US and the online scene. Let's do that and make that our thing. Sadly, it's gone away as a thing, but we're hoping we get it back a bit with the MCQs. But that without that hook of uniqueness, I don't think we'd have even started, would we?
No, I think both of us actually sort of said, like, this section is being underserved. We actually both felt, why has no one done this? We would listen to this. We would listen to this all the freaking time. Why has no one done this for us? And then you sort of went, well, why don't we do it? You know how to podcast. Why don't we do a podcast? And it was suddenly going, oh, that's a niche. We have the skills to fill it. And trying to see what we can do with that. So yeah, that was kind of...
And we've tried the collaboration bit as well. We've had Autumn on, we've had David Carf on. We've dealt with people who are slightly above the level we're at to get a different perspective. And we're doing the same right here.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that was Vince's advice for new creators. Let's listen to what Zuby's got to say on this.
One thing I wish I knew I started was... just really how much of a grind it is outside. So if you ever read my article on the other side of content creation that I came out, I think a month or two ago, I think came out 2 months ago, something like that. One of the biggest parts that I write about is making the content is the easy part. Getting it out there is so difficult. Getting people to listen to your content or watch or read your content, whatever it may be, even outside of Magic, is so hard and difficult. I really wish someone would have told me that, because I swear I've spent more hours into marketing, networking, and everything outside of actually producing and making my content. just if you're going to get into it, realize that it's very tough and difficult out there. If you already aren't known for something else, like if you aren't already famous in whatever particular community or in Magic, it's going to be very difficult to get yourself known out there.
Absolutely. He's entirely correct in every field, whatever. I mean, I looked into writing, and that's exactly the same. If you're not well known, you're going to find it difficult to get yourself known. And it's built that small audience, and that small audience can grow. And that's where what PK was saying about getting the like, comment, subscribe thing that even my daughter has, that she reels off because she watches YouTubers.
Yeah.
And so when she's pretending to do a YouTube video, it will always be like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah,
So that thing of get the people who are watching you to tell one other person to watch you. And it's something I'm really bad at. I'm really bad at getting, even like at FNMs when people ask me what I do, when we're talking about stand, oh yeah, I do a podcast. What? And I'm just like, I really should be talking about that a lot more.
But I mean, I think
you feel like you're putting yourself. You're saying I'm really good at this because I've got a podcast, which I'm not trying to do, and I want to avoid looking like I'm doing.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that aspect where you're self-deprecating to a certain degree coming in. But I think that was actually something that PK was saying. There's that fine line you've got to walk between getting yourself out there, as Zuby says, which is one of the hardest things, and like getting yourself known on social media, grinding out to like just tell people about it, and then not come across as overly pushy, as in some way self-aggrandizing, I guess is probably the best way to put it. You don't want to come across as that person that's like, no, this article is amazing because I wrote it.
Yes.
You don't want to be that person, because that person isn't a nice person, isn't a person that people actually want to listen to. The problem is I still have trouble doing it even when I know that it's pertinent to the conversation. And part of the reason
I have trouble doing it.
Zuby's advice is, I think, one that we both agree with. The grind to get yourself known is very hard. And
I think what I liked about how we did it, Jack, was that we had the t-shirts with our logo on. So it was advertising ourselves, but very subtly. Unfortunately, at exactly the same time, more and more people started wearing team t-shirts.
Yeah.
And people have just assumed that it's our team instead of assuming it's a podcast. Which I think if we'd have started 6 months earlier, we'd have had a lot more questions about it, because people wouldn't have been so like it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think we agree with Zuby's point here, and I think I do actually agree that creating I wouldn't necessarily say that the creation of the podcast is easier than trying to get people to know about it, but it tends to be the more fun part, and that is not a reflection on talking with people, because I love talking with people about the podcast and things. It's just there's a lot of screaming into the void that goes on, especially at the start when no one knows who on earth you are, where you're just like, here's us on social media, we're doing a thing, and people are like, don't care, do not care. And right, I get it, your time is finite.
And we accepted that at the start we would have a very small audience, and we did. But we are slowly growing that audience. And I think that's the right way to go about it, is slowly growing the audience, not trying to suddenly be the next big thing, because the next big thing often blows up 3 months later and is then nothing. Absolutely. I'd rather be something for a long period of time, growing slowly.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So actually, to that effect, Zuby had some advice for creators that have started to, get a foothold, and then how to grow, how to carry on growing. I think you should listen to that. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I learned pretty early on, and it's something that I see a lot of content creators make the mistake of, is you have to be genuine with your interactions with people. And it's not just your audience, but other potential people, online, on social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and not just be constantly trying to advertise your product, right? If you don't have your own marketing team behind you, which 99% of us don't, it's you really have to be genuine and I guess just not really pushy. I guess, I mean, don't just like jump into conversations like, oh hey, I talked about this on my podcast, or I wrote an article about this, here, check it out. It's you gotta be someone that people wanna talk to and look up to.
So obviously that falls back to that thing we were talking about earlier with Pleasant Kenobi saying you can't be too pushy.
Yeah, it's that line.
It's that finding that line, and I think Zuby puts it really nicely, and it's just, be genuine. Be genuine with people. And it's like when I share the podcast everywhere I do weekly, it's not necessarily just like, oh, okay, I have to do the advertising push. It's, I'm genuinely excited that I have created this thing. I would like to tell people about it. And then when I get involved with conversations with people on Twitter about, Magic topics, that is because I am interested in what's going on here. I have an opinion, and maybe someone would like to hear that opinion. It's, that kind of thing. And then obviously when you're dealing with people who, I know we've said this before, when people come up and they say, hi, I enjoy it, I enjoy what you're doing, that's the easiest thing in the world to be genuine about.
Yes.
Because,
yes.
Because someone comes up to you and goes, that thing that you do, I like that thing that you do. Keep doing that thing that you do. It's like, okay.
You know what I'd like even
you.
more? If someone's come up and go, I like that thing you're doing. I wish you'd do this. And allow us to spar and go, oh yeah, okay, we can go that way for something. And we have had that. I know that we intend doing an episode on dealing with
standings readings.
And that comes from one of our listeners going, you could maybe talk about this. And we both went, yeah, you know what? That really is something that we could do an episode on. So we will be doing an episode on that at some point in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think Zuby's point there is very well taken. It's the best way to not cross the line is to be genuine with how you're interacting with people and on social media. So yeah. So obviously PK has said a lot about being unique there, about finding your niche. And actually Zuby has some really I think interesting points on this as well. So let's just have a quick listen to that.
I think maybe one of the biggest breakthroughs I had was I didn't want to do the same format that everyone else was doing. And I'm going to be honest, I've listened to a lot of Magic podcasts, and about 99% of them bore me immediately because they all talk about the same thing. And I've been Magic with Zuby has been guilty of this as well. I'm not saying I'm any different from that perspective, but how every podcast will talk about, the latest news, the latest decks, the latest tournament, and all that. I mean, yeah, that's all well and good. I mean, obviously someone has to talk about it, but I've always been more of the fan of, I kind of just want to talk about what I want to talk about, right? And I feel like I tried to make that come through, especially with my interviews, right? I'll get someone who's a Magic personality or a pro player, and I'm sure everybody wants to hear, how did you do so well at XYZ tournament? Where I'm like, no, I'd rather talk about, hey, what else do you like to do besides Magic? That kind of thing.
So Zuby said that this was one of his biggest breakthroughs, this realization that not doing what everyone else is doing has both helped him grow as a community, as a content creator, but it's also increased his enjoyment of what he's doing. And I think that feeds back very well into what we've said before about, if you're not enjoying it, don't do it. And that's actually kind of cool that he was like, no, I found what was unique and it made me happy. So I got to keep doing this thing that made me happy, but also hits our other, creators should try and find a niche thing that we were talking about earlier. So yeah, I think that's kind of cool, especially obviously calling us out almost explicitly for doing news into results into deck text by total accident. I am almost 100% that Zuby hasn't listened to our podcast because of something that he says later on. But yeah, it was a little bit like, wow, just cut us to the bone there, Zoobs.
Yeah, but we will point out that we are unique in how or where the types of decks we're taking, where we're taking our decks from. Even though, yes,
absolutely, we aren't just taking the latest GP results. We aren't just taking the latest MTGO results.
Exactly.
We are trying to look at a specific local metagame and gauge.
When we had 30 decks over the course of a season, 30 results. 36 results. We could do some unique stuff. Our tracing of the metagame was definitely something that I don't see anywhere else doing.
No, I don't think anyone else did that the way we... Certainly not the way we did it.
And that we can no longer be doing that. But we will find other ways to be unique. We have unfortunately had to focus a little more on the news recently.
So part of the reason I wanted to talk to Vincent was obviously, quite a well-established creator at this point. He's taken this on full time. And part of what I wanted to talk to him about was getting into a sponsorship agreement with a large provider. For those of you who don't know, He's now under the banner, sort of Channel Fireball, in that he produces content for them. He also does, and he goes and does coverage at GPs. Like he's the floor commentator at GPs out in the States and things. So I kind of wanted to ask him how that kind of affected the way he would go about creating content and the way he got to work on his own projects.
I was lucky enough that the sponsorship from CFB came around December time, after I had some like meetings and chats with them and things, which was coinciding with when I'd just gone full time. So I was never in a situation where I had to find more time. It was that I had more time to fill in some ways initially, although I still feel like I ran out of time a lot of time. So yes, that was lucky enough that didn't affect my channel in any way. And also CFB were fantastic. Channel Fireball were fantastic when it came to me I made kind of like demands in a way. I said, look, I want to be on board with you guys. I love you guys. But A, I won't change the videos that I make. B, you're not getting any of the stuff like on my channel. You're not getting the heavily edited stuff because it just takes too much time. And C and D, and I said all these things, and then they just turned around and said, yeah, sure, that's fine. And then all they were asking for was a weekly video, which of gameplay, or I guess I could do other things as well, but at the moment I'm doing gameplay because I'm not wanting to experiment too much over there at the moment until I've got my groove on my side of things. In terms of jokes, so CFB have got, so the content that I make for CFB, the video that I make for CFB is slightly less jokey. I still muck about on them a little bit. I still play some weird stuff. I haven't played this truly weird stuff yet, which I'll get around to soon, hopefully. But and I swore my first few videos over there, and the editor didn't catch all the swear words. So there's just me effing and blinding in one of them. But I moderate myself over there because they are family friendly. They are PG. So one F bomb or one S bomb, as it were, and that's probably as much as you can get away with. So that's moderated because I just can't swear over there because that's just not their remit. They have no problem with what I do on my side as long as I continue doing it the way I was doing it before. So I'm all about, I swear a lot, I make a lot of lewd jokes, I'm very open about, like, I'm sex positive and joke about sex a lot in like a positive way, and just dumb shit really, but I'm not about slurs and I'm not about like punching down. Your comedy should punch up, right? Like I make jokes about my own government a lot, so they're okay with that as long as I just continue the way I was going, and that's what I've done. So nothing has changed. But even to the extent I've got to do fun things like record dumb stuff in like their offices with them and things for clips in my videos and stuff like that. So nothing with my content has changed. And luckily enough, because it coincided so well with a full-time gig, which I think is what they approached me because they knew I was going full-time. So they're like, well, perhaps we should tap this guy. They were good. And like I said to them, I can't change the way I am. And I have a responsibility. I have responsibility to the patrons and the people that already follow my channel, sub to me on Twitch, sub to me on YouTube. Those people also deserve the content I make already, and they were like, of course. Like, it's a weird thing to say, and people say this about big companies. Don't say this about big companies enough, but when I got to meet some of the guys behind the scenes at CFB, I was amazed at how much they actually cared about Magic and the community, including the content being made as well. So they've been nothing but excellent and given me free range to be a weirdo.
I love the idea of a free range PK. That idea has now like gone through my mind of like PKs out in a field, not cooped up in a barn somewhere.
But there should be a comparison of barn raised PK.
barn raised versus free range PK. Yeah. So obviously that's really great to hear, and I think that's kind of an important point to make. The sponsors in Channel Fireball were willing to work alongside what Vincent was already doing. And that is, that's something that we have with Axion now. The fact that they said, we like what you're doing. We're not looking to change it. We're just looking to make it work for us. And it's like, yeah, totally get that. Absolutely. And then we said, we have some things that we're not willing to change or do. And they said, okay, we'll have a think about that. And he eventually got back to us and we're like, yeah, we can work with these things. And that is, I think, a very powerful thing to have in a sponsor who actually believes in what you're doing.
I think also it should be pointed out probably that all Magic companies essentially are not big companies. We think of CFB and even Wizards themselves as the big corporate behemoth. But actually, okay, Hasbro, they are a big company. And if you go start doing things with them, they might have some things to say, but everyone else is actually not that big. And you will be allowed to, if they want you to work with them, they want you to work with them because of what you're doing.
Yes.
And so they don't want you to change what you're doing because that's why they like you in the first place.
Yeah. Obviously, as Vincent pointed out, toning down certain things is different.
Yes.
It's, not swearing. Fortunately, I mean, we when we started out went, no, we want this to be a family-friendly podcast as much as possible. And that kind of thing is a decision that gets made at some point, and obviously Channel Fireball have had that since the beginning, and Vincent on his own content doesn't have that. That's not a filter that gels with what he wants to do. But when you're working together, as long as you're willing to say, I can tone this down, like I can change this, then yeah, great. Like, keep working for them. It's actually really interesting, though, because obviously what he was talking about there, the sort of, this is what people expect from me, was something that we kind of came up with when we were talking about the advice for new creators. And we said, if you get 10 million hits, but you don't enjoy what you're doing, that's a bigger problem because now people expect it from you. And it's like, yeah, this is the same sort of thing. If
Yes.
people expect something from you and then a sponsor comes along and goes, we don't want you to do that way anymore, it's like, okay, you are now presented with a decision, and the decision is, do I give in to what my sponsors have asked for and get to take whatever benefits they're offering, whether that's financial benefits of some variety generally or something else? Or do you say, look, I'm not going to be able to do it that way because I've got these past commitments to people that is, basically exemplified by people being willing to be my patrons, my subscribers on Twitch,
You sort of
followers.
need to think of those people as your sponsors already.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's like, okay, this one sponsorship needs to be able to, if they want you to change, A, you have to still be happy with what you're doing, and B, they have to you have to go, they might need to completely replace everyone who's currently sponsoring me because they might all drop out if I'm changing.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the answer is probably find another sponsor.
Yeah, generally. It's actually, so I ended up discussing this with Abbie as well, and she actually came up with some similar like pitfalls of what sponsorship could lead to, as well as a few others that I found kind of interesting. So why don't we listen to that quickly now?
So this has been a real big thing in like what we've been discussing. It's like, what is it that we're going to ask for? How much? How often? What's the ranking? And I don't think we're ever like going to actually work out a real answer until you actually start the process. So I think that, gosh, possibly even just starting at a completely random point of, how long does it take me to make X? How many? So, I mean, obviously a lot of people are talking videos. We don't do videos. We're not a YouTube, which I say a lot. We are a website where we do articles. But say a lot of people who probably listen to this, they're considering videos. So it's like, how long does it take you to make a video? How many people click on that video? Are you already monetized on YouTube? So how much money are you making from that video on YouTube? If a video actually takes you 20 hours, there's no way you could pay yourself a living wage. That's just, you would have to be getting like Tolarian level clicks to be able to be like, oh yeah, so I'll pay myself £10 an hour. That'll be fine. I don't think, especially for near YouTube, anybody would even consider that. Maybe you need to actually look at, can you speed up your process somehow but not lose quality? I'm already like slightly going off path here, but that's another big thing that I see a lot with artists. It's like, a painting may only take them an hour, say, but they'll still charge £100. So, and then somebody's like, they're earning £100 an hour. It's ridiculous. But that doesn't take into consideration that they spent 10 years at art school, or that the products that they bought cost X amount. You need to learn a lot. So if you're making videos, you will probably have to spend your first year actually learning just how to make the videos and get to a point where you can make a videos very quickly. I do make videos. I'm not a YouTuber. But I do video editing. And I can get videos out, like, I can video edit fairly quickly on the stuff that I do, so I think just a lot of practice will make that process quicker. So maybe at some point you could actually consider, X amount of hours, I'll charge this amount, because I can do a video in, say, 4 hours. So I'll, £8 an hour might not actually seem too ridiculous. Especially if you're getting a good amount of clicks. I think the biggest thing for what I would be thinking about is actually sponsorship, like trial periods, because it's no good for either side if somebody is overpaying, underpaying. Because if you start up and you say, sponsorship, say just random number, £100 per month or $100 per month, whatever. And then actually you are making that sponsor £3,000 or dollars per month. I think that means that your time is actually worth a bit more than 100. But if you're only making them 100 per month, then they're actually not making any gains. And a sponsor does need to actually make money. They can't just, hand you free money. So in that case, they may need to half it, if not more. As also, you just don't want to be stuck. If you are in a bad sponsorship, or you realize that actually you and your sponsor don't see eye to eye, you do not want to be in that sponsorship. If you find out that a sponsor also sponsors somebody that you do not agree with, you actually may not want to be associated. I mean, that does sound pretty mean, but this is a very tight-knit community, but there are lots of offshoots of this community. And being put in a basket with somebody else who has wildly different opinions to you actually could be damaging to your brand. It could be damaging to their brand as well, If you start getting put in the same category, that's the only time where, as just talking about just your brand, that's when you really need to start being concerned and actually distancing yourself from certain other creators or websites or whatever. It's just, that's now talking brand, that's talking cold hard business kind of stuff. It's a tricky world.
She was talking about about finding a balance of an amount.
Yeah.
Which rang true with me. But how do you have someone who wants to sponsor you? How do you approach how much to ask for? And how do they approach how much to offer you? And it's an awkward moment, isn't it? Of, yes, an actual money amount needs to be stated here. You don't want to go in too low and you don't want to go in too high. You need to come up with some idea of what you're worth. And as Abbie says there, it is to do with how much you make for the person who is sponsoring you. Not necessarily directly financially how much you make them, but how valuable you are to them in terms of their brand.
Yeah, that sort of thing is obviously super hard to value, because as you say, it's not just direct click-throughs or, I can directly trace the things with like promo codes, a bunch of streamers have them where it's promo codes, and when people have used those promo codes, they know they're coming from that streamer,
from that source. Yes.
And you go, okay, well, obviously less the 10% or 15% code or whatever it is, you actually earned us this exact amount of money.
And so those sort of situations, the streamer can get a 10% of that amount.
Yeah, that's it.
Or
then you can start asking for like a cut of that. But when you're talking about, CFB, I don't think are going to necessarily say we had Pleasant Kenobi on the ground at the Grand Prix.
Yes.
There's no way for them to be able to say having him specifically that
gained
earned
us extra viewers or
exactly
extra exposure.
Yeah, and then obviously it's basically impossible to turn that into a number, like a value, an amount of money, because there's no way of going, or it's very tricky to go from we had this amount of exposure and that turned into this amount of dollars of card sales.
So one of the ways that sponsors work is they go, we want to have our brand exposed to your audience, and we're not sure we currently have all of your audience. So that's why they do that. And as you say, you can't necessarily put a money amount on that. Unlike with a sponsorship of an advert sponsorship where someone clicks on the advert, there's a definite link into it.
So this conversation about sponsorship is actually, this came up because this is part of the big part of the future plans for Master of Magics. You know, I wanted to see where all three of these creators were planning on going, wanted to go. Zuby's question obviously gets a little bit theoretical because obviously Zuby's getting out of content creating. So I wanted to put this question towards all three of them, and that's actually how Abbie and I got speaking about sponsorship, because when asked about the future plans for the website, Abbie said this.
This is actually also funny because a few days ago I posted in our Facebook group saying, hey, where do you each personally hope the website is like going, or like where do you hope the website will be at the end of the year? So we've been discussing that lately, which has obviously been a lot of sponsorship discussion, because that is the most immediate thing that we're looking towards. But I mean, in general, I definitely want us to have an article going out every day, and that's not necessarily just Magic, or at least an article going out every day. In 5 years' time, I hope that we have multiple articles going about each day about different games, because when the website started, the intentions was always to move towards other games too, because, you know, we don't just play Magic. Magic players aren't exclusively Magic players. There's a billion other things out there that we do. I mean, myself personally, I play a whole bunch of games, and part of the team, we all used to play Dungeons and Dragons together. We don't now. We've all moved away from each other. A bunch of them were only here for university, so they've now moved. So there's so much, and all of these communities, there's a lot of crossover. So it seems to make sense that we would be aiming to integrate into multiple communities. And we want to.
So obviously Abbie was speaking there about their future plans, and as I mentioned before, the clip played, we were speaking a bit about sponsorship and that kind of thing. And then she also pointed out that they're moving into different games because there's a ton of crossover between the Magic community and wargaming, board gaming, video gaming communities.
Dungeons and Dragons. Yes.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons community, obviously. We're all nerds together, as it were. And basically she was also like, I just want to up the amount of content we put out. And that's actually kind of interesting, because that's basically what PK said as well. So if we want to listen to what Vince said about his future plans.
I don't know, really. I think in the long term, what I'd love to be able to do is make a couple of videos a week myself and stream once or twice, but also have other creators on that are part of the same stable. So, like, if I could afford to have an office space where I have multiple people making content at all times, that would be fantastic. But that's something I joked about on Twitter recently, and people started emailing me pictures for show ideas and stuff, which was really cool, but I'm nowhere near at that stage yet, because I wouldn't even know how to begin doing that myself yet, let alone be able to actually, to foster it in the correct way. So further on the line, I'd love to have other people come on to take some of the workload, because not take some of the workload, that's not the correct term, but to make more quality content, because as I said before, time is finite, right? And at the moment, I'm trying to put out a video once a day at 5 to 7 days of the week where I can. Even small, silly things to full gameplay, to edited gameplay, to stream videos. Try and put at least 5 to 7 videos a week. The algorithm on YouTube loves that nonsense as well. They love having multiple a video every day. But the thing is, while I'm doing this, I'm then running out of time in the day anyway. So I'm like, but I would love to have 2 videos a day, or other larger projects going on in the background, like something that takes weeks to make but that comes out on a certain day. But I don't have the time to do those projects right now. So I'd want to having other people come on would allow me to do that, or free up my time to do that. So I'm aware now. Before it was I didn't have the time in the day to work my day job, have my social life, and make Magic content. Now that I'm full-time Magic, I don't have the time in the day to make enough Magic content. So I guess the only logical step there is to proceed to create a team of some kind. But
so obviously wanting to basically start a something like a
it's a company that he wants to start.
Yeah, it is he wants to start. It sounds very much like
isn't that how CFB started?
Yeah, exactly.
There were a group of people who wanted to create stuff, and they got together and created it together. So there were a whole series of articles every day, and not just the one article.
Yes, from one person on one disparate website somewhere on the internet. And obviously we've had Magic article websites for years, even going all the way back to like the dojo, and then before that you had like the message boards and things.
Yeah.
But the way Magic content works now is generally bigger creators end up under these umbrellas of CFB, Star City, Cool Stuff Inc., TCG Player, to name like 4 that I can name off the top of my head at the moment, and I am certain that I am missing big ones out there. I mean, Goldfish does it now. Goldfish is now a content creator. It used to be a data website, and now it's a content creator website.
But again, they've had additional people come in. Krim was not on Goldfish up until a few months ago. And then he's come in and he joins in their podcast, and he is producing videos alongside Saffron Olive.
Yeah.
They're both doing slightly different things, but it means that Goldfish are putting out an extra video a week or two that the Asian Avenger's doing, as well as the stuff that Saffron Olive's doing.
Yeah.
Time, I understand, as a pressure. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah. If you ever want to have a really deep conversation with someone at a Magic event, not about Magic, go up to Vincent and ask him his thoughts on time. Nothing else, just time in general. That's understandable. Trying to be bigger, trying to be more, because I get the very distinct impression that Vincent's like, I have all of these ideas and I want to make them all. That was very much the vibe I was getting from him. It was this massively excited, just wanting to do more. And he's like, if I can take some of that and give it to people that I trust, that are not going to do something really weird with it that I'm not super interested in, and they can come out with something that I would be proud to put my name on, and at the same time I can start working on some other maybe higher concept stuff.
That is always the risk. If you start and then you get other people in, is A, being able to release some control over what's going on. That's hard. And B, worrying about, is that going to match with this brand that I've created?
Yep.
It's definitely an issue, but I can see it on the other side. If you start to get monetized on YouTube, the more videos you can put onto YouTube, the more monetization you get.
Yep.
And that helps. I mean, I guess the biggest example of somewhere where this has been successful is Loading Ready Run.
Yeah.
And you look at how much they put out over so many different but connected areas of gaming.
Yeah.
That's where you want to be.
Yeah, and obviously the people that they've, there was the original core group of Loading Ready Run, Commodore Hustle, the whole group, and they started getting into a lot more content creation-y things. And then a lot of the people that they've brought in since have been creators, generally streamers in their own right. Adam and Ben are streamers in their own right, and then they've come in and it's like, no, we really like you. We'd like to have you be a creator with us and stream with us.
And we know that you fit our style of content creation. Yeah. But you've got to be putting out that level of content,
like that volume of content,
and that quality of content to have a chance of being able to do something like having a space that you use for creating your content.
Yeah, when Vincent was
the size of their offices.
Yeah, when Vincent was like, if I could get an office, and I was like, wow, that is a big ask. So yeah, that's PK's like future goals. He did say, it's a long ways off yet, so I would say don't start sending in any resumes just yet. But at the same time, definitely do keep an eye out for when he's like I've pulled this person in. They're going to be doing like a video a week for me or something. Because I imagine that that'll happen at some point. And
I expect so, and unless he becomes part of CFB.
Exactly, yeah.
And he, instead of him having his own thing that he gets people into, he becomes part of that. But who knows?
Exactly. So from that, we then go to someone who, as I say, they're getting out of the game. Zuby is quitting content creation, at least in a regular, formatted way as his podcast Magic with Zuby. And he sort of... We'll discuss the whys in a little while, but I did want to ask, where would you want to go? If you were going to keep going, if what was causing you to stop wasn't there, where would you want to go with this? And I think his answer is definitely worth thinking about.
I'd probably definitely want to take it to a place where I'd probably just be doing nothing but interviews, because I really do enjoy talking with, especially Magic personalities and, whether it be content creators, pro players and stuff, and probably just try to do that more often and, have more 2.5 hour podcasts like I did for the last few episodes there. And I think it'd be a pure interview show. So
obviously what he was saying there is like moving more into the space that I'm already starting to fill up. And I think that's a really nice place to be in, where you're like, no, I'm starting to do the thing that I really want to do. Obviously, Zuby's got other pressures that have caused him to quit out, but I think that kind of thing is a really nice way to be. It's like, no, what I want to do is the same, but more. And in a similar way to what PK was kind of saying, and what Abbie was saying, it's just more.
Yeah, and all of them are this is the bit of content creation I really enjoy. I want to do more of it.
Yeah. And that's and again, I think that leads all the way back to finding this niche. And this niche that makes you happy. And once you've found that, and it's not necessarily going to be what you start with. Again, what we were saying earlier about, people moving between mediums, moving between ideas. You're not necessarily going to start on what makes you happy, on what you want to keep doing. As long as you're willing to make the jump to something else, to change, even if it's just slightly change. So, as I said earlier, Zuby's getting out of the game. And the reason for that, the basic reason for that we sort of boiled it down to, was what we're kind of referring to generally as burnout. And I'm sure many of you will have heard this term before. Actually, Vincent and the Professor actually recently did a Dice to Removal episode talking about burnout in Magic in general, like in playing Magic. Burnout in Magic is a thing that I think a lot of people understand. I don't think as many people understand the idea of burnout in creating. And that's actually something that's really important and goes on horrendously, like a lot. So we've got views from all three of our creators here on burnout and things. So let's start going into them. Abbie has some interesting ideas on just avoiding burnout in general. So let's dive into that.
Working as a group has actually been very important for us, because especially me, because you definitely see this with a lot of creators, and I think if you ask any creator, they will all say the same thing, is that it's really easy to burn yourself out and not want to keep doing it. I have definitely been in a position where I have thought I could just let this website just, stop existing. But then I have this great team behind me that are there to pick up any slack, and I know a lot of people don't have that luxury, but I mean, that's where it's a good place to start, is to start from your community, or start by building your community locally, maybe, if you have the opportunity, and just getting some friends involved and doing stuff together and not arguing, which somehow we have not done. So it's like some miracle.
So, yeah, in combination with Abbie's earlier comments about, ignore what people are saying to a certain degree, just try and not let the negative feedback get to you. being part of a team, being part of a group is something she recommends here, and I think both you and I, Simeon, would definitely agree with that.
Well, I certainly don't think we could have kept going with the podcast if we hadn't been doing it together.
No.
If we'd have been doing it separately, it would have stopped.
Yeah, absolutely. If we had both set out and done individual podcasts at the exact same time, we would have stopped, probably both of us, within 6 months. I think.
Yeah, and certainly I think when PPTQs got stopped, I think we'd have definitely gone, well, you don't really have anything to talk about now.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've definitely hit a wall occasionally, and it's only been the fact that, and with the greatest love to our listeners, it wasn't the fact that they were listeners that kept me going. It was the fact that I knew that you'd be on the other end of the line going, we need to record. Come on, get on with it.
Yeah, and both of us have done that.
Yeah.
It's also that there is someone else relying on me.
Exactly.
So on the weeks where you're feeling, I can't really be bothered this week, I'm really tired. And no, I have to do it. And then the fact that we've done every week, obviously apart from my Christmas, New Year breaks, that then makes you go, no, I keep wanting to do it now every week because I don't want to miss a week, because that would be horrific.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a serious streak going here. I am not looking to break it.
No.
And yeah, exactly. It's there's another person relying on me, sort of like nudging me along. And that definitely keeps me going. So Vincent actually feels like he hasn't hit burnout yet. So I want to kind of hear what his thoughts are on what he thinks it's going to look like and what he thinks he's going to have to do to deal with it.
I think any content based around a competitive endeavour like Magic is, because Magic's always about whether you win or lose for the most part. I try to move away from that with my channel and my content. I'm a lot about having fun more so than winning. But anything where you can win or lose has that added pressure of winning or losing. So I released a video about, I think it's like 4 or 5 weeks ago now, where it was just called Having a Bad Day. It was in place of my normal big video. I just spoke about how I wasn't winning anything. Like, I'd lost every game of Magic I played that week. Like, across like Draft, EDH, and like Modern and Legacy. I couldn't win a game. So that in itself can burn you out. I had a stream yesterday where we lost 5 rounds of Magic in a row before we picked up our next win, and that can really degenerate and make you salty and burn out as well. So you get the Magic burnout, and then on top of that you get the game, the content creating burnout of making a video and it doesn't do too well, and that can really take its pressure on you. And I don't really switch off from YouTube at all. Like, I'm constantly looking at my analytics or my comments, what comments I've got. I read all of them, how my numbers are doing, looking at like 30-day averages and stuff, like, because I care, because I just want, I've never cared about succeeding so much in something in all my life, and I care that much. So I've not really experienced true burnout yet. I've not really gone, I need a full-on break from this. I've took some days off and things, but I guess I haven't hit the burnout patch yet. I think that might come, because at the moment I'm on this like hot streak where I've hit my peak watch time and views in the last 30-day period ever on the channel. So I'm at like a all-time high, and I don't want to let that momentum go. So I'm putting out content today and tomorrow, and there'll be something on Sunday, and then there'll be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday again. I'm streaming 5 times this week. It's just because I want things to grow, and I want to hit new audiences, and I want to meet new people, and I so want to succeed in this thing. I know eventually that will cause burnout. So I'm aware that in May, for my birthday, for example, I'm probably just going to have a week where I just don't upload at all, and just have a week where I just turn off and switch off and just play Xbox and probably try not to play League of Legends as well. That game's my other thing that burns me out, because that game's a toxic environment to be in as well. So yeah, I haven't really burnt out yet to be able to tell you, but I think it's probably going to come, and I'm aware of it, and it's a real thing. And I feel stressed and pressured a lot with Magic content creation, but the real burnout hasn't happened yet, so it's hard for me to really say.
So obviously what he's saying there is like, he hasn't hit it yet. His enthusiasm seems to have pulled him through, like having hit that point. But he's also like feels under pressure. He feels those numbers creeping into his mind.
I'd rather be in Abbie's place going, don't look at the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but at the same time...
Obviously, it's a big bonus when you're at your best ever numbers. That's fantastic. But then what happens in 3 months' time where it's gone down each week over those 3 months, even though it's then possibly still above where it was a year ago, and it's actually gone down just because actually more Magic is viewed in April than it is in June.
So yeah, I agree with that. I can totally understand that. That's actually something that comes up in our conversation about burnout with Zuby. So we're going to get into that a little bit deeper later. I will say, of course, the difference is Abbie isn't relying on those numbers for finances.
Yes.
Vincent is. And obviously...
and especially as he's given up a full-time job.
Yeah, exactly.
To move into doing content creation full-time, then your numbers are very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, we get into that in a little bit more depth with Zuby. So actually to start with, what I wanted to talk to him about was... combating burnout and what kept him going. So let's listen to what Zuby said kept him going.
It's really hard to say because especially the past year, there were just so many times where I'm like, all right, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But there, especially in the early days, I was just so excited to just keep making more and more episodes, and I had a ton of ideas of what I wanted to do. I mean, even though my podcast now is ended, at least for now, there's still so many ideas I have written that I could do, and it's not that I didn't want to do them. It's just you want to do other stuff first, right? So at least what kept me going was definitely the audience. A lot of the good feedback I got, especially early on in the first 2 years. And then, meeting other content creators and other people, the community kept me going as well, too. And, but I think in the end, what has to keep you going is yourself. I mean, are you wanting to keep doing this? Right. All those external influences and external forces can keep you going, but I think in the end it's going to be what keeps you going internally. You could have 5 million fans, but yet if you yourself aren't going to want to keep going, it's that flame's going to die out one way or another.
I think that really feeds back into a lot of what's been said, right? The whole idea of if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to keep going. Like that just is what it is. If you don't enjoy it, there's no point in keeping going in some regards. The fact that he admits that part of what kept him going was support from other people, and I think similarly to the negative feedback that we spoke about a lot earlier, even the lovely things that you say to creators, that can't be what sustains them. Partly because it's so infrequent, and partly because, again, it's an external factor. It's not how you feel in and of yourself doing this thing. I don't know necessarily if you agree with that, Simeon.
You look at, I don't know, to take a completely different scale example, you look at pop stars, and they spend their time being venerated almost. And almost exclusively, at some point, they will want to stop.
Yeah.
Not 100% of pop stars do, but most of them do. They have a period where they're very creative and really enthusiastic, and then it goes off and they stop. And sometimes they come back later on, but often they stop because they've burnt out, because they've put too much of themselves into it. And maybe it's something you shouldn't necessarily you shouldn't stop yourself from doing. You do need to take a proper break at times, because you will burn yourself out. It comes from you, not from everyone else. You're keeping going.
And that's actually really interesting, because obviously we heard PK saying he's going to take some time off for his birthday. And actually, Zuby explains how he went about combating burnout.
So the common ways that I would combat my burnout, since my show was a weekly show, is I would try to record a bunch of episodes all at once, whether that's interviews or solo episodes. So that way I could just have them in the can, like maybe have 2 to 3, maybe 4 episodes recorded. That way I can just take a break. And I would almost detect when I was starting to get burned out. I would just, then it's like, all right, I need to record a couple episodes in the can, get them all lined up, ready to go, and boom, I'm just going to take, 3 to 4 weeks off of Magic content creation and come back at this with a fresh mind. And that always really helped. It helped every single time.
So yeah, Zuby also agrees, and that's basically what he did. He got, some episodes lined up, ready to rock. and basically done, and just went, cool, I'm going to sit on these. I don't have to put these out every week. This is obviously the way we were doing the podcast was very focused on the news, the most recent results, that kind of thing. It's very hard then to get episodes ready to roll.
We couldn't do in advance. So, like, for instance, the week where I wasn't available to do it, you had to record to someone else. Thanks again, Alex. Because we just, the type of content we produce can't be done in advance.
Exactly. But at the same time, I think that's a really good idea.
And
that's basically what... Sorry,
equally, we do take those 2 weeks off around Christmas and New Year and don't try and fit it in episodes alongside the hell that is Christmas and New Year family time. Not because my family is hell, just because it's so busy around then.
I'll get you a new shovel, Simeon, for next Christmas.
Yeah, I'll pop it down now. But we have those 2 weeks off that when we come back in January, we're back very enthusiastic again for the next year's worth of shows.
Yeah, I always feel really good around January doing these podcasts because, you know what? Right, we're back to it, you know? The other thing that I will say is we also cheat because we get the slight boost of enthusiasm when new sets come out, because we're both so enthusiastic about Magic in general, and because we're very standard focused. Eternal formats aren't as affected by new sets. If you don't play limited and you don't play standard, you kind of don't massively worry about new sets.
I wouldn't want to do a weekly podcast about a game that didn't change as much as Magic changes.
Exactly. The fact that every 3 months we get 3-ish months we get a new set come out. We get new tournament scenes arising that you have to take into account when you're planning your deck and things like that. The rise and fall of mono blue over the last 3 months has been incredible. It's been so interesting, and I will definitely be talking about it on our Sunset show. But it's given us the ability to just sort of go, oh yeah, what happened this week? Oh, that's really interesting. Or there are new spoilers and that kind of thing. And that re-enthuses you, and that helps combat the burnout to a certain degree. So it's like you're doing something different, The tough bits of typing up deck lists and editing the podcast, the not super fun bits, yeah, they stay the same. But the bits where you're standing there and talking about the new spoiler for the Mythic Planeswalker, or the tournament results coming out of Japan or something like that, is just, it gives you something new to talk about, and it means that when you are doing this thing, it's, like I say, I feel like we're cheating a little bit.
Perhaps.
So that's how Zuby would go about combating burnout. But obviously it's gotten on top of him now. It's to the point where he basically says, I can't do my usual, take some time out, come back to this with a fresh set of eyes, because it's gotten too powerful now. So let's talk to him about what caused his burnout, and then kind of what pushed him over the edge of going, no, you know what? It's time to give up now. It's time to quit. We're tapping out because this has stopped being fun and this has stopped being rewarding. So let's get into what caused Zuby's burnout.
So I think the viewership going down, or the downloads, was a huge major contributing factor to it, and I can't give you a rhyme or reason why they were going down, because I have 3 years of statistics of downloads and views for every single episode of Magic with Zuby, and I kept track of it. The first 2 years, it was on the up and up and up. Then somewhere around the middle of 2018, it just started going down, and I just couldn't figure out a rhyme or reason like why. I'm not doing anything different. I'm actually getting more notice and notoriety actually from Wizards and from Channel Fireball, but it just kept on going down, and I can't tell you why. And then I don't know what happened, but sometime when Magic Arena went to like the official open beta, or when they did the closed beta that pretty much allowed everybody in, that's just when it started taking a huge dive in terms of downloads and views. And then come November, December, it just went down even worse. So I was trying to think of everything I could to try to basically save a sinking ship and try to figure out what's going on. And then 2019 hits and it's even worse than December, November. And I'm at the point where I was just sitting back thinking, in order for me to try to get back to where I was and for me to try to, grow this to something where I want it to be at, the level I want it to be, or even the level it was at, it's not worth it. Because, people can make an argument of, oh, well, if you really had passion, you could have kept on and all that stuff. Or if you really enjoyed it, it's like, no, I understand that well and good. But the amount of effort and time I'd have to put into it is just not worth it for me financially. And it's not worth it for me, my mental stability too, because it was literally eating at me every day as to what can I do better. And I could not come up with an answer. And I'd be talking to all my other content creator friends, like, what can I be doing that's better than already, And it was just, so I started posting less on Twitter and just really sitting down thinking long and hard about it, especially at night. And it was like, it's not worth it. It's really not worth me getting all this stress and burnout and over something that in the end doesn't really matter in the long run for me. I'm glad I had many people that have enjoyed my show. I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful I got to meet fans last year at certain GPs and all that stuff. I'm very thankful for that. But there comes a time to where it's the amount of effort and hours I'd have to put into this is not worth it, because it's taking away too much from my family and it's taking away too much from my career. It's taking away too much from me, myself, as well.
So obviously that's, I think that's kind of what we would have expected. It's the numbers started dipping. I couldn't fix them. It started eating at me.
Yeah, that's the problem part.
That was the phrase that made me go, yeah. See, I think part of the problem is obviously Zuby really cares about the product. He really cares about the podcast he's putting out. And that in some ways is just a bad place to be in, actually. When the numbers start going down and you can't identify a reason, it's not like you've changed the format, it's not like you've done anything new. Now you're at the position of just going, I have no logical reason for this. I can't fix it. I still care about it, but because of this, I don't enjoy it anymore, because I'm fighting
this is the problem with things like YouTube and podcasts, that you're not in a position to ask your audience who have disappeared why they've disappeared.
Yeah.
Because you don't have their details.
No.
If you, run something where people have to come and visit you, or you have to send something to their home, and you start to find your numbers are dipping, or where you sell something and so you have addresses that you've sent it to, you can create a survey and send it to those addresses to get feedback on why someone has stopped buying from you, or why people continue to buy from you. What's the differences there? What's going on? When you have no answers because you haven't got the data, that gets hard. But this is one of the reasons why I like to not look at the numbers. And I realise that once you start to get money from these things, the numbers become far more important.
Yes. See, my problem is I have instant access to all of our numbers, and
you see, I'd like to know the numbers occasionally to go, okay, are we going, have we increased over the course of the last year or not in our listenership? But I don't want to be looking at it every day, because it would eat me up.
Yeah.
And you would start to worry about it. I don't want to worry about it. I enjoy creating the content. And then if other people like it as well, amazing.
So yeah, I think that's, kind of what we would expect of Zuby saying, I got to this point, my numbers started dipping, it hurt me. And from there, he started not enjoying it as much. Yeah. Is kind of what I would say is how that came across. So I asked him, you kept pushing through that for a certain amount of time. What tipped you over the edge?
So I think what I decided to really call it a day was it was just, I don't know if I can pinpoint one thing exactly, but it was just, I sort of woke up one day and was just like, okay, I'm done. I took a pretty long break from Twitter, and then it's funny because I have some of my people, like really close people I'm friends with in the Magic community, also on Facebook, So I took a break from Twitter, just like stopped posting altogether. But I'd still be posting on Facebook, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. It's not like I'm completely away from social media. And I just took a long break, and then I started getting some DMs on Twitter like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I mean, you guys are friends with me on Facebook. Don't you see what I'm doing? But it was just really taking myself out of the Magic community and then looking at it and then looking at my content. And I'm just sort of like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I mean, I have no desire. And it was just, I've had those kind of little mental breaks before. Like I said, I would take, 3 to 4 weeks off Magic content creation, and then I'd want to go back and keep doing more. So I sort of did kind of the same thing, especially with the last few interviews and episodes. I had them all lined up because those were all, by the time they came out, they were all like 3 to 4 weeks old already. And so I was taking that long break thinking, okay, maybe I'm burned out again. But during that last little long break, I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that was it.
So that was his first response. He just came to this idea that he just didn't want to do this anymore. And obviously social media seemed to play into that. And he actually expands on that in the next part of his answer.
One is I am not happy or excited at all with the way Magic is going right now as a game. I used to love Standard. And then ever since Ravnica Allegiance came out, Standard, I feel, is probably in the worst shape it's ever been. Well, I shouldn't say the worst shape it's ever been, but it's the worst shape it's been in a while, I'll say. And I'm just not excited to play it at all. I think blue is way too busted as a color right now in Standard. And I'm not a fan of Modern right now. Legacy has pretty much died in my area, so I can't play Legacy anymore. I mean, I still love EDH, don't get me wrong with that. But so, and with this upcoming War of the Sparks set where there's going to be Planeswalkers in every pack, I am not excited one bit at all for that, because as much as I like Planeswalkers, Limited is one of my favorite formats, and I just cannot find myself excited at all for a limited format with nothing but Planeswalkers, essentially. So, because Planeswalkers are always pretty much an I win card for Limited. So, and then there was also a lot of the community too, where it's just, I mean, you've probably seen this, you go on Magic Twitter enough where, it's, I hate to get political with crap here, but it's always, you try to like stay out of politics and all that stuff, and you see someone, oh, this Magic person said or did this at a tournament or somewhere, and let's all gang up and, do this and that. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone that's happened to it wasn't warranted, but there's so much of that stuff. You just get tired of it. You get tired of the stupid little Magic Twitter drama where there's so much stupid inane drama and infighting over the littlest, dumbest things where, I just sort of sat back and realized, like, this doesn't affect me. This doesn't affect my life. Yeah, is that maybe some of my privilege speaking? Sure. But, if I want to try to make a better world for people and, try to be, whatever you want to call an ally or be more accepting and all that stuff, is I'm going to do what I can in my immediate surroundings, right? Why bother fighting with people on Twitter about, oh, because so-and-so said or did this? It's like, I'm probably never going to see that person ever face to face. But if I can affect my immediate surroundings where I make a better community at my LGS or at my place of business or even in my home where I raise my daughters to be good, respectful people, then I feel like I'm doing my job as a human, and I see too much of that infighting online, and I'm just like, I'm done. And Magic Twitter is no better with it. That was a big contributing factor. And then, of course, the other factor was I just lost passion.
So before we go any further, I do want to make sure that no one gets the wrong idea about what Zuby's saying here about Magic Twitter. Partly because I agree with him about a lot of it, but
the drama of it and the constant
can
drama
get a little
of it.
overwhelming.
I mean, there is some amazingly positive things come out of Magic Twitter, and there are some things that have taught me aspects of how to be a better human that I wasn't aware of before, and which I try to include in my life. But the amount of negativity is sometimes
Yes.
utterly overwhelming, and you just go, no, don't want to have this in my life. And unfortunately you can't on Twitter go, I want to stop all of these conversations, I don't want to see them. I want to
Yeah.
still like these people,
Yeah.
but I don't want to see this conversation.
Yeah.
No, I do agree with Zuby there. School playground stuff that
exactly.
that strikes you as I could be coming across this in a school playground. I want to ignore stuff. There is also stuff that is out there which is not really for other people to be commenting on because they don't know the whole story and they are just taking a tiny bit of it.
Yeah.
And yes, there, as I said, there are things which have been empowering and useful and helpful to me as someone who doesn't get prejudiced against for any reason. Understanding other people's point of view, fantastic. But yeah, he is not saying that we shouldn't be calling out the racists and the bigots. We should. He is saying the stuff that strikes you as a 5-year-old, that should not be happening.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely felt that was how he was projecting it as well. And I totally get it because, as you say, I agree. There's too much of that negativity. I do have to say, I disagreed with him about the direction Magic's taking as well. Obviously, if you're getting burnt out on playing Magic, you're definitely going to get burnt out on talking about Magic.
Creating content about Magic, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my personal opinion is that Standard is in a relatively good spot, especially in comparison to the last 3-ish years. And yeah, I feel like the Planeswalkers in War of the Spark have shown that they're not all going to be completely busted
I wanted
in
to
Limited.
actually ask you, when did you record the interview?
So we recorded this about 3 weeks ago. So this was before any of the previews.
Any of the previews had come out.
Yeah.
So we were aware there were 36 Planeswalkers, but nothing beyond that. I have been pleasantly surprised at how unbusted a lot of them appear and how they might well lead to interesting situations within gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. So that's... And including within Limited, where...
Yes.
I mean, that's the one that Zuby calls out as being like, this is where Planeswalkers can be the most broken. And it's like, totally agree.
The Mythic Planeswalkers are going to be, and someone at London is going to open 2 or 3 Mythic Planeswalkers and walk through their pod.
Yes. So I think Zuby's main point there is definitely one to be taken. He's gotten a little bit burnt out on the game, especially when you're like, I don't like Modern, and I'm like, I feel you on that one. And also, the other format that I enjoy, Legacy, isn't being played locally, so you don't get to go out and have that nice interaction while also playing a format you enjoy. It's like, yeah, that super sucks.
Oddly,
that really sucks.
I think a tip that I would have for content creators is to keep going to FNM. And
you've been finding that really helpful.
And not necessarily to go and take a tier 1 deck, create some janky deck, go to FNM and have interactions with people who are just getting into competitive Magic.
Yeah.
And that does really help. Seeing the spark in others helps keep it in yourself.
I like that. That's nice. So obviously with all that, I did want to know if Zuby regretted it. And I think the answer that we got was kind of exactly what I would expect.
I mean, the one thing I am thankful for doing this was I got to meet a lot of cool people. I've definitely made some lifelong friends out of this, and that's not something I don't regret starting this or, doing this. And and just like I said in my last episode, this is goodbye for now. I mean, knowing me and how wishy-washy I can be a year from now, or hell, even 6 months from now, I'll be like, oh, I feel like doing this again. And it's almost frustrating, and you can ask my wife how frustrating it can be with me, how wishy-washy I am. But I think for now, I just need this break, and I'm not done creating content forever. I am working on some other stuff, but it's not Magic related. That's all I'm going to say. I'm looking into other avenues of content creation, and it's not exactly podcast form or videos or anything like that. So, and when I'm ready to announce what that is, I will probably announce it on Twitter more than anything, because I feel like if I spill it too early, then it's going to be one of those, oh shit, I've got pressure on myself that I've created that no one else is putting on me but myself.
So I think we can both totally understand that the people that you meet while doing this, like I've been able to kick up way more conversations with people about this kind of thing because we're a content creation, like because we create a podcast about this, and now because I stream as well, like I get to say, oh yeah, no, I stream Standard like on a regular basis, so feel free to chat with me about Standard and that kind of, and obviously chatting with people in Twitch streams is also super fun. And the fact that Zuby's like, this has come to an end, and in coming to an end, it's obviously been pretty brutal, I would imagine, going from I make this thing every week or stack up a bunch and output them every week to I'm no longer making this. I can imagine that feels pretty devastating. And he's still just like, no, I don't regret starting
I think
this.
that feels, I would expect the needing to have a complete break of I'm not doing this anymore is when you've taken that 3-4 week break and you haven't been excited to come back to it. That's where you go, oh.
Yeah.
It's like when you're doing a job and you love your job and you're excited on a Monday morning, and then you get less and less and less exciting, and then you take a 2-week holiday, and you realise that normally when I come back off my 2-week holiday, I'm like, yes, I want to get back into doing it, and now I'm knowing I don't want to get up on Monday.
Yeah.
That's where you go, I need to go and find another job. I need to stop and do something else. And he's right. It might be in a year's time, he comes back to, I want to do that magic creation thing again. Okay, I'll restart. I'll do maybe go on a different line so he's not comparing his numbers to how they were, starting afresh with something different. And it might be you need your brain to stop completely, and it then thinks of a new idea that you haven't had before, and you get excited again because you've got that new idea.
Yeah,
it's interesting to hear he's going to go into content creation of something else, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done on him for not spilling on what it is, because as he said, that puts pressure on you to actually do it once other people know.
Yeah, no, precisely. I'll agree with all of that, and I think Zuby's doing exactly the right thing for him. If he's not enjoying it, and if it's become a chore, then yeah, it's time to stop.
Yeah, there's no point doing this content creation thing as a chore, especially when you're doing content creation something like Magic, which is never going to make you a millionaire, is it?
Yeah. Not even remotely.
No.
So the last thing that I kind of wanted to ask all of these creators was, how do they keep up with what other people are doing? You know, how to in this sphere of Magic content creation, how do you keep abreast of what's going on so that you can know interesting trends of different types of content coming out? Obviously those shifts tend to be quite slow, but you know, how do you keep up with that? And also, how do you keep up with so that you're not accidentally doing something that someone else has done? Because that's something that I've kind of worried about for a long time, of just being like, oh, well, someone's going to tell me that so-and-so did it, and then I'm going to feel like an idiot for putting it out. So I didn't ask Vincent about this, unfortunately. I forgot. So, Vince, if you're listening, tweet it at me, because I'd like to know how you keep up with what everyone else is doing. But here's Abbie's answer to that.
I don't feel bothered by that. The only people who are bothered by that are the type of people who will comment on this being like, oh, so-and-so already did this. You know, there's no way that you're going to say the exact identical things. And on some occasions, people may feel down because they do a video or an article, and then so-and-so, who's a much bigger channel, happens to do the exact same thing at the exact same time. And that's just unfortunate timing, but you know, it doesn't take away from either of you. You'll just end up getting a bunch of people commenting, being like, oh, so-and-so did this already, or you're just copying them, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I don't think I worry about that. I know it's come up with in our team chats, just about making sure that what we're doing is contributing, especially on the competitive front. It's actually quite difficult to make sure that when you're talking competitive Magic, what you're actually saying is useful and hasn't already been covered very efficiently by a pro player. But when it comes to casual stuff, like or casual commander, like, does it really matter if somebody else also had the same idea? I personally don't think it does. I used to actually follow everybody possible on Twitter. Then that actually made it more difficult to keep up with content, which sounds ridiculous, but I mean, Twitter's changed the way it works now, so you can see what everybody likes, and you can just see random posts from people who are followed by people you follow, which is infuriating. I actually had to unfollow a lot of people, and a couple of people did actually notice that I did this. And I had to explain to them, like, it's actually nothing personal. I'm just not seeing anybody's content anymore, because all I'm seeing is, oh, this person is followed by such and such a person who just tweeted saying that they went and got a hot dog today. Like, I'm literally just not seeing anything anymore that I wanted to on Twitter. So I ended up just having to remove everybody, and I feel like I see a lot more content now because I've unfollowed everybody. I'm seeing a lot more of people's content who I'm not following now that I'm not following them, which it seems backwards. And obviously it doesn't make people feel good, because it's like, oh, why is this person not following me anymore? And it's obviously a lot of people put a lot of value behind their Twitter followers, which again I think is wrong. But if I said that to somebody who has fewer followers than me, then they'd be like, oh, that's easy for you to say, or something. But it's not like that. Yeah, so if anybody's listening to this and I'm not following them on Twitter, it's probably not personal, unless you said something really mean. Yeah. But it's actually because everything is so saturated, I have actually found it very difficult to keep on top of what people are doing. But I do see people posting stuff. Obviously, YouTube has a notification system. Some people post stuff on Facebook, which is actually a very useful way to actually be able to see things. So Facebook possibly is better than Twitter at this point for trying to get your content seen. I did at one point, I spent about 2 days solid watching at least a video or like reading a article from every person I could find in those 2 days. I sat down and I wanted to get to know people. I wanted to get to know people's content. So yeah, I've not told many people that I've done this, but I did. I sat down. It was at least 2 days, and I just had a whole bunch of YouTubes open. I had Twitter, I had Facebook, I had a bunch of Twitter lists open, which is something fairly useful people use. And I was just going through them one by one, just watching a video or two, just to be like, oh, this is the kind of content they make, cool. So hopefully I didn't choose the subpar or like their very first video or something they're not proud of. Hopefully I picked something that everybody was proud of. Because, if you're not proud of something, then maybe you shouldn't upload it, or maybe you can. I don't know. Hopefully I picked out the good stuff. But yeah, that was an intense 2 days. Honestly, I did nothing else. I just watched YouTube videos. And that's how I know there's a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of creators.
That is an interesting way of tackling that particular problem, and something I wouldn't have considered doing, really. I just hope I find people. To be fair, I tend to follow the same people's content. So like at the moment, pretty much everything I watch is Goldfish.
See, it's funny, I do the same, but I occasionally switch who it is.
Yeah, and it will probably turn to Channel Fireball a bit more at some other points and various other things. I do listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yep.
So I am keeping abreast of what other Magic podcasts are doing, but not of what other Magic content creators who are doing other things are doing.
That sort of intensive sit-down thing and just go through it is super interesting, and is maybe something I might actually have to try. Just like find a bunch of smaller creators and just listen to what they're doing or watch what they're doing, and then just take what I think works and build on it, build it into something else maybe. Because that's definitely the way that we see progress in our content creation. And then the other thing of Twitter's algorithm being stupid is definitely something we've both run into.
Yes.
The number of tweets I've seen recently that are like random nonsense and is followed by such and such a person. And I'm like, no, I wanted to see tweets from them, not the people they followed. They haven't even liked it. They haven't interacted with it in any way. And yet,
Facebook is just. I mean, I tend to not do my magic stuff on Facebook. Facebook is
personal
for my non-magic
Yeah.
things on the whole, but it is full of stuff. I can sometimes scroll for 3 minutes, going, nope, there is nothing here I actually want to see.
Yeah, exactly. So I can totally see that. And obviously, as Abbie says, if you have been part of a Twitter purge, do not take that personally. It's just, and the algorithm is kind of useless. So blame Twitter.
We're kind of useless for how we want to use
Exactly.
it. It's not useless for how Twitter wants us to use it.
Yeah, then that's the problem. So obviously Abbie's like, I want to see as much as possible and tries to dive deep. Zuby has a different plan.
So when I first started doing the podcast, I was definitely trying to keep up with what everybody was doing, watching all the other videos, seeing what other people are doing, and try to spin it my own way. That quickly stopped probably about a year and a half in. Now it's like I don't watch anybody's Magic content really because one, I don't have time for it, and two, it's just too much to keep track of. So that's where I definitely I try not to worry like, oh, if I'm interviewing someone else has been on their podcast, or if I'm talking about a certain topic where 5 other people have talked about it too, I just don't care, right? Because I want to talk about it, or it's something that I genuinely want to talk about, or have someone on that I genuinely want to talk with.
So Zuby takes the route of, if someone's done it, if...
That's a very fair point, though, because you don't know if your listeners have heard what someone else has done anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
If you go, I can't do it because so-and-so has done it, it's like, well, but you don't know that your listeners have listened to that so-and-so doing their podcast or their video.
If it comes up and you've got, theoretically clone content, although I would say that even if you asked the exact same person the exact same question, the chances are you're going to get 2 slightly different answers that give you slightly different meanings to a lot of people. So it's worth, even just interviewing and asking someone new, someone the same question again a couple of months later, like, how do you feel about this thing now? Well, it's just, someone's going to answer differently.
Also, we aren't interviewing people who are trained in answering interview questions. Yep. We're not exactly interviewing politicians here who give the same pat answer over and over again. The type of people we'd be interviewing do tend to answer the question honestly, and therefore are giving slightly different answers each time.
Yeah, exactly. So...
And also, you as an interviewer pick up on a slightly different nuance than the previous interviewer did, and you go off on a different tangent.
That was exactly what I was going to say. You're going to pick up and run with it in a different line of questioning further to that. So yeah, even if you're interviewing the same person with the same questions, you're going to find something new out of it. And of course, when we talk about a deck, when we talk about soul tie or a card, like just anything, we're going to talk about it differently because our experiences are different to any other player, be they pro or brand new novice Magic player. Everyone, or indeed even people who are theoretically at our level, we're all going to think about a thing differently. And that's, hopefully that's why you come and listen to people like us talk about this sort of thing, because you want to hear different views and different ideas, and you want to see how we play differently in our gameplay videos and on our streams. I'm streaming Soul Tie. Someone else is streaming Soul Tie. Is their content better than mine in production values and other things that you may like? Maybe. But in terms of raw gameplay, of course they're going to be different, because we're different people. We're going to play hands different ways. And that kind of thing is important to just get out there, I think. So yeah, in the end, not caring what other people are doing. Taking some ideas on board is always good, but I think in terms of like worrying about clone content, nah, don't worry about it.
No, I wouldn't either.
Okay then, I'd like to take a quick moment here, obviously, to thank very much all 3 of our guests. As I say, we had them all on because they were identified as parts of the community that would have differing opinions. If you're a content creator and I know you, please, the reason I didn't ask you on isn't because I don't respect you as a creator or whatever. It's just these 3 people we thought would have a good cross-section of ideas amongst them. And I think we found that with this. So again, I'd like to thank all three of them, Abbie, Pleasant Kenobi, and Zuby. Simeon, is there anything you'd like to add to that before I let them do that?
I would like to thank them as well. Yeah. Thank you, Jack, for doing the interviews. I think you've got some really, really interesting content from all three.
I hope so.
Yeah, thank you again to the three of you. You have been amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Some really interesting stuff here. So hopefully any potential or current new content creators out there have listened to this and maybe picked some stuff up. So, where can we find all of our special guests? Why not let them tell you? Here's Abbie on where you can get hold of her.
I'm Abbie from Master of Magics. My website is www.masterofmagics.com. You can also find me on Twitter at MOM so that's ABBIE. And we do have a Facebook page, which is Master of Magics. We do not do YouTube. Don't look for our YouTube. Don't do it.
And here's where you can find Vincent.
I've been Vince, also known as Pleasant Kenobi on the internet. You can find me at youtube.com/Pleasant Kenobi and twitch.tv/Pleasant Kenobi. I'm also Pleasant Kenobi on Instagram and on Twitter as well, and pretty much every other social media platform too. But Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch are the places you can find me. Content goes up regularly, like every day almost, over on YouTube, and I stream between 1 to 3 times a week over on Twitch as well. I play Legacy, Modern, Commander, a bit of Arena here and there as well. I do topical videos as well as gameplay. So yeah, I would appreciate if you check me out.
And finally, obviously, getting out of the game, but still worth keeping an eye on, in my opinion, is Zuby. So, Zuby, tell us where people can find your stuff coming up.
You can find me on Twitter at Magic with Zuby. I'm still going to keep that Twitter around. And then you can also... I've pretty much gotten rid of almost everything with Magic with Zuby, except for, the podcast is still going to be up. And then my YouTube channel, I think just youtube.com/magicwithzuby, I think I changed it to. I still have plans. So I have my other sort of companion podcast, RPG Companion, that I did a few episodes on, that I still plan on doing very inconsistently, because I really do enjoy still the tabletop RPG community. And I don't even play F&M anymore. I do D&D every Friday night. I DM a campaign right now. And right now I'm actually working on trying to build my local D&D community. And I'm working on trying to start a beginner's D&D class at my LGS, because I have so many people interrupting our campaign on Friday nights that want to join or learn how to play. And I told the owner, hey, why don't I just run a class on learning how to build characters and how to actually play the game. So, yeah. So, like I say, you can subscribe to me on YouTube. Its videos are going to be out very inconsistently. I can't tell you when. It'll just be when I feel like it, essentially. I think I kind of like that schedule a lot better.
Again, thank you to all three of our guests. It's been amazing. Chatting with you was an absolute blast. Right then, we should talk about some upcoming events very quickly. This weekend, 12th to 14th of April, we've got Magic Card Market Ghent. If you're going to that, let us know. Have a good time. It should be fun. We'll be probably trying to grab some data off of that next week. Simeon.
On the 5th of May, Axiom now have a Modern for Goodies with 40 UMA box toppers on offer to the top 8.
And I'm assuming a very healthy prize support for basically everyone else. It's Axiom.
I suspect so. Absolutely.
On the 11th of May, we've got the first of our new crop of MCQs in Liverpool, hosted by Just Play Games. We still don't know the format of that, but I would recommend starting to keep an eye on Just Play Games for pre-orders of tickets and things.
And then on the 18th and 19th of May, we have the double MCQ in Sheffield run by Patriot Games. And on the same date, the 18th, Arcane Cards, in collaboration with Eclectic Games, have a Modern tournament, Modern Magic Series competition, and over £1,000 in prizes.
Yeah, absolutely. That one, again, should be a good one if you're enjoying Modern. And then on Saturday, the 25th of May, through to Monday, the 27th of May, we have a mega bank holiday weekend. We've got Standard on May the 25th, which is apparently now the MCQ. I don't think it's fully been announced that
it hasn't been guaranteed, but I can be pretty certain that's going to be a standard MCQ.
That would be my reading of how everything fell there. But yes, there's an MCQ on the 25th. There's an MCQ on the 26th as well. There's also a Legacy tournament on the 26th. Again, these are Axion events. Prize support is going to be excellent. And book soon. They're keep an eye on the website. They'll be coming out with tickets fairly soon, I would imagine. And then on the Monday, because it's a bank holiday, we get to play Mega Modern, and obviously Mega Modern being Mega Modern, the winner will win a trip for two, including accommodation and VIP entries at the Magic Fest of their choice worldwide.
And the trip to Hong Kong that Abbie was talking about in her interview.
Oh, was that one off of?
That's a Mega Modern prize. That was the one with the free typhoon.
Oh yes, poor Chris. Yeah. But yes, he did at least meet some fans out there. And then obviously for the rest of the top 8, there's a crate. Yes, crate, not box. 6 boxes in a crate of War of the Spark. So
yeah, go win it.
Go top 8 it, and then try and win it, and then go somewhere really nice with a friend and play some sweet Magic. Simeon, just briefly before we go, Standard, what would you be playing right now?
Obviously tokens, although I have tried out the blue-green deck.
The user tempo thing, yep.
Yes, and it's okay.
Okay, cool.
It can go off and be great, and then it can not go off and be awful. But that might be just because I'm not playing it very well yet. So I'd still be on tokens.
The thing that I will say with this, it's basically a mono green stompy deck splashing blue for the deck hand that gives creatures without
parted deck hand, and also for
Frill Mystic. Yep, exactly. The fact that it has no dead cards against Wilderness Reclamation or Esper Control is a really good thing.
It would be if I had played more against Reclamation and Esper Control, yes.
What are you playing against mid-range decks?
I've played it 6 games, okay. So it's, as you know, Standard has a wide-ranging meta at the moment, so I'm playing against quite a lot of different things.
I keep being told that, and yet all I'm fighting is Wilderness Reclamation and Esper Control.
You're a bit higher up the ladder than me.
Yeah, well, those 2 decks are very good, hence the reason I would probably say what you should be playing is Esper Control, in my opinion, right now. If I had the cards for it, that's what I'd be playing. I think the deck is excellently positioned and I think beats Wilderness Reclamation in general, but I'm not 100% on that one because I haven't
think
played
so, because
either side of it.
It has the counter spells.
That would be kind of my opinion on it as well. So Esper Control would be the deck that I'd play if I could. If you want to see any of the deck lists from the last year and a half now, please do head over to standardintelligence.uk. If you'd like to talk to either myself or Simeon, you can find us on our Twitters. Simeon, you are?
I am at SimeonBMTG, and Jack, you are?
I am at JackPatton42. If you'd like to email us about anything longer form, standardpattern@gmail.com is the preferred email address. You can find that on the website, however, as well. We have a YouTube now. If you're watching this on our YouTube, you obviously know about it. Please do hit that subscribe button and maybe give us the thumbs up, as Abbie was pointing out. Very handy, those interactions. What goes up on there is also a lot of the VODs from my stream, because I stream over on twitch.tv/jackpattern_MTG. I stream Arena, Best of 3, Standard, and I'm there every Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, although not next week, because next week I am on holiday. We also have a Facebook. Please check out our Facebook page. I've been posting links to interesting articles and that kind of thing up there recently, and just trying to get a little bit more content rolling through there that people might find interesting. So if you want to head over to Facebook and like the Standard Intelligence UK Facebook page, that would certainly be very helpful. I'd also like to thank our sponsors once again. Axion Now, they sell a wide range of singles, and you can even trade in your cards for cash or get a better return if you prefer store credit. They sell sealed product for drafts and sealed, along with basically all of the equipment you could ever possibly need to play a game of tabletop Magic. Over on the website, you can find a bunch of their upcoming events. We've obviously mentioned a couple. Modern for Goodies on the 5th of May, and then obviously the mega weekend on the 25th to 27th of May are the big hitters coming up. But there's a bunch of other events going on in the week, and you should definitely check them out if you're anything like local. Amazing crew over there. You can also find articles and videos by some of the best Magic players in the UK on their website, AxionNow.com. They had Autumn Burchett playing their Mythic Championship winning deck up on the website a couple of weeks ago now, and over the last couple of weeks people have been talking more and more about Dredge, certainly in the light of GP Bilbao heading into MC London, so that's certainly something that you might want to keep an eye on if you're interested in the MC format going into Magic Fest London weekend. We'd also like to extend a very warm thank you once again to our patrons over Patreons over on our Patreon. Please do head over there if you're interested in supporting the podcast. We'd love to thank them really so much again. We're actually looking at maybe adjusting our structure for what you get at each level, because we've been at the Patreon now for about a year, and we think it's probably time to just review and check out and make sure that it's still doing what we hoped it would be doing for people. So yeah, keep an eye on patreon.com/SIcast for any potential updates that maybe make you consider just joining and supporting the podcast there. Thank you all very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
I'm going to be on YouTube because the Daddy's podcast is going on YouTube.
That bit won't.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, you know what? That's going on right at the end of the YouTube. That's going on right at the end. Don't even worry about it, Lottie.
Oh, God. I might have to actually listen to it. Oh, dear.